Well, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving yesterday. Maybe you're still celebrating it with your friends and family this weekend, and I pray that you are having a wonderful time making new memories and celebrating that time together. So, we are officially in the Christmas season today, and thus all my Christmas gear. Plus, today we're going to talk about something that has come up quite regularly over the past few years. I've had this question, so I thought I would address it and put it in a video. So this time I can just go back and say, hey, go watch this video. Because I have a lot of people ask me this every year. And it is the simple question of, well, it seems simple. Why do Christians celebrate Christmas? Because there has been a lot of things coming up lately that discourage Christians from celebrating. So we are going to get into that today. The first thing, though, is that yes, it is true. Jesus was not born on December 25th. We have plenty of evidence to say that it was not at that time, but there's a reason. We'll get to this, all the history. He was actually born. We have more evidence that has led us to see that he was born Tishri 1, which would have been September 11th, 3 BC. And I have a video. I will try to link it in the comments or in the stories so you can see why we can be able to pinpoint it so specifically, even down to the 80-minute window, which is just incredible as to when he was born. But if Jesus was born September ish, why do we celebrate it December 25th? Well, and this is why I have my notes, because I am not good at history. My husband is good at history. I do love to go back and study and give you information, but when it comes to just being able to spit out dates, that's not my strength. So I have to write it down. But in in 350 AD, Pope Julius I actually chose the date December 25th to be what he called the Feast of Nativity. Now, before then, there was a whole lot of pagan celebrations. You probably have been seeing the circulating. This is what has been causing so much confusion as to should Christians celebrate. Before this point, there was a lot of pagan celebrations around the winter solstice and all the gods that were celebrated in multiple cultures around this time period. So, Pope Julius I wanted to steer away from that. He did not want all of this paganism there in the land anymore. So, he wanted to overthrow it, he wanted to overrule it. So, what he was doing was creating this time, and he chose December 25th to celebrate Christ's birth because this was a strategic time with so much pagan celebration that this would get the attention off of the paganism and onto Jesus. So he didn't want to have to celebrate Jesus' birth in maybe the spring, which is where a lot of people thought at the time. He didn't want to celebrate it then because this was the central hub in December for all the pagan celebrations. He wanted to overthrow it, and he wanted it to be overpowered by the Christian influence, and he accomplished it. So and in fact, the custom also spread. The Feast of Nativity also spread into Egypt. So by 432, it was also into England, and in the 6th century, it had taken over most of the land. So then we move into the Middle Ages. Now, in the Middle Ages, the Christianity now has taken up, for the most part, it had already replaced all this pagan religion. But then it began to turn into a more of a ruckus and more like a Mardi Gras kind of festival celebration. So the religious reform came in and they canceled Christmas altogether. Then in the mid 1600s, Charles II came back on the throne and he restored Christmas. Now, around the same time, Martin Luther, we talked about him around Halloween, All Saints Day, Reformation Day. So when we had that discussion, well, Martin Luther was super key for Christmas as well. He did so many things that reformed and changed the world, and he was very key for Christmas. So Charles II comes back on the throne. He restores Christmas. Martin Luther, now around this time, there was another celebration that was going on, and it was December 6th, which was St. Nicholas Day. So since the church had canceled before with all the way it had changed, it went from these Mardi Gras type of festivities for the Feast of Nativity. Since it got canceled, there was this other celebration that was going on, and that was December 6th, and it was St. Nicholas Day, where they celebrated St. Nick. Well, Martin Luther comes in and he says, and of course, Charles II is now reinstituting, restoring Christmas again. Martin Luther moves the celebration of gift giving that was given with St. Nicholas to Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And it was strategic because he was saying that Jesus is the ultimate Christmas, the ultimate gift giver. And he wanted to move it off of a human and onto Christ. So this is why he moved the date. But he did more than just moving the date of gift giving. The celebrations were mostly on the square, and that's where that Mardi Gras kind of celebration was. It was really big for and crazy and ruckusy, so he changed it from the square to becoming a very intimate setting within the home. Now, it is believed that the Christmas tree already was starting to come in here at this point, but it was the Christians, that not paganism, Christians that brought in the Christmas tree. Now, there was the pagan celebration before in the early hundreds. There was a celebration bringing evergreen boughs into the homes and into the different public areas to celebrate these gods. But the Christmas tree was specifically by the Christians. They're the ones who brought it in as symbolic of being everlasting covenants. Now, the part where a lot of people get confused on with this Christmas tree, and we'll take the side note here for just a little bit, is from Jeremiah 10:2-5, which talks about cutting down a tree and then decorating it with a lot of baubles, gold, silver, and stuff, and then making it an idol. Now, the thing that most people take out is the part where it says that the tree is cut down and it's crafted and fashioned specifically into an idol, and then it's decorated with all these things. So what Jeremiah is talking about is the using of these trees as idols, which we know obviously is not good. So if you're using any kind of creation to become an idol, then that is not allowed. Now, that's the only place in Scripture where it talks about that sort of thing. Everywhere else in Scripture where it talks about a tree is multiple places where trees were taken and either planted or rooted and planted to symbolize a covenant, because the green was an everlasting covenant, especially any of the evergreens. So that's what the Christians were doing. They were taking this and saying, we want an everlasting covenant that we are given to God. So that's where this Christmas tree came from. Now, it is attributed to Martin Luther that as he was walking through working on a sermon, that he saw the lights of the stars twinkling through the evergreen tree branches, and he wanted, now this is a story, we don't know if it's actually true or not. This is the legend, I guess. So he decided when he had the Christmas tree at home to put all the lights. So he's attributed with putting the lights on the tree to evoke the memory of the Bethlehem stars that night and to put a star at the top. So that's where all of that kind of comes from, is from Martin Luther with the lights on the tree. Okay, so not only did he do those things, he also made this into a family setting where you spent time in the home and you talked about the gospel. It was changing it from just a celebration to is gospel focused, and it was a family, it was home centered, and it was gospel focused. He of course popularized the tree with the candles, but he also emphasized the humanity of what Mary, Joseph, and Jesus went through, of the whole nativity story. So these were some really big key things. And because of all this that the Christians were doing, they did dethrone the pagan gods and these celebrations. That was their intent and purpose, and they accomplished it. So now also we have in Germany, because this Martin Luther's in Germany, so a lot of the Christmas traditions actually came out of Germany. So the candy cane was made in Germany to help quiet the kids in church, because they were being a little loud, so they were made for that. So when Queen Victoria and Albert came, of course, they saw these traditions. They loved it, and they brought it back to England with them, and that's where it became even more popular. And then you have Dickens, who reinvigorated Christmas with his stories. And then around the same time, you have Washington Irving, who wrote an account that really solidified what the Christmas customs and traditions should be in that season. So there's a lot that was taking place in the mid 1600s and then the 1800s. And then in 1870, June 26, 1870, Christmas was then finally declared a federal holiday. So, final thought is, should Christians celebrate Christmas? 100% yes. Because what happens if we don't? If we take the approach that, well, it's a pagan holiday, so we shouldn't celebrate what the pagans celebrate, then what happens is we go back to what it was before, in that we just hand over the enemy back this holiday that they once had and say, yeah, we don't really care. So you can have it back. And of course, those celebrations will begin again. But and we completely forget what the Christians were doing. They were trying to overpower and overthrow these satanic, demonic kinds of pagan celebrations. So it is more of our responsibility to keep the focus on Christ, not to let it get off kilter. Now, real quick on St. Nicholas, because our family does not celebrate Santa Claus, we do talk about the story of St. Nick, which I might have talked about last year. But we do tell his story because this was a man that loved God, and he had the generous heart of God. So what we teach our children is the true story of St. Nick. And then we understand that he gave to so many people from this heart of generosity because he learned it from God. And that is what St. Nicholas would have wanted to be passed on. Not this magic and mystical understanding. He would have wanted the focus to be on God. He didn't even want the credit for what he was doing when he was alive. So the focus has always been Christ, 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 Christ. And it was not supposed to have been taken away. And it would have crushed this man if he knew that Santa Claus, his name, was getting replaced, or was replacing Jesus Christ. And so we tell the story of St. Nicholas, and we embrace fully the Christmas season with the Christmas tree, because we want it to celebrate, to say we have an everlasting covenant with the Lord, with Jesus. We put out the nativity, we put the lights on the tree to symbolize the stars, and there's so much more. The gold colors on the tree to celebrate the gold that was brought by the wise men, and that he is such a gift that's beyond anything that we have on earth. And there's just so much more symbolism when you actually take it and you appreciate it and you use it to tell the story of Jesus's birth. And yes, he was born in September, but we didn't have the exact date for a long time, and so we adopted this date so that way we could celebrate and we could override and overthrow the powers of Satan that work in this world. So I hope that you do celebrate Christmas this year, and you celebrate it loud and boldly and proclaim this is Jesus's birth, come to give us life through wrapping himself in human skin and being this little baby for us. Because if you celebrate it on a different day, it won't have the impact that we have right now, in a time when it's all focused in and everyone is celebrating Christmas in this season. So Merry Christmas and enjoy this Advent time.